Hey there, welcome to the green room. This is David
Sorry,
Pearl.
not yet. Not yet.
Hey there, welcome to the green room. This is David
Sorry,
Pearl.
not yet. Not yet.
Hey, good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are. This is David Pearl in London, and welcome to the green room. Now, the more observant of you will have noticed that it doesn't look very green, but wait, patient. These are days that require a bit of patience. We will get to the green room. I just wanted to say welcome and ask you in these strange times, how are you? How are you? Now, I'm a British person. Those you know, British people. If you ask them at the moment how they are, you get a long story. Well, you know, considering I went into lockdown in mid-March, and then there was trouble with the eggs, and it goes on. We haven't got time for that. So what I would love you to do, YouTubers out there, what I'd love you to do is when I ask you how are you, I'd love you to come up with like a three-word headline that kind of summarizes how you are. For me, it would be something like need less coffee right at the moment, or missing my kids. Elsa and Zach have just gone up to Edinburgh. So a little three-word story, if you like, a little headline of how you're feeling. Pop it into the comments. That's the international mime, by the way, for the comments pane on YouTube. And the very first person that puts one up there, provided they're not an actual relation of mine, gets a copy of my book. Wonderful. Gets a copy of my book. You might be during this event. We will be inviting you to make comments, ask questions, and you might even be moved to heckle, which is fine. The best heckle, if I see a really good heckle, we will. You'll also get a book. It's a bit like, you know, the winner gets a book, the loser gets two books. No, it isn't that. But anyway, we will make sure you get a copy of Wonderful. So here we are, and why the green room? Why now? Well, my I've been a performer all my life pretty much. I started, I think, when I was like 5 or 6, and I've been in theatre and opera and telly and film and, you know, and the corporate stage, if we can call that performing. And looking, stepping out of it and looking at it, I was noticing that I've had as much fun and enlightenment and joy, if you like, off stage as much as on stage. In fact, I would even say more. You spend more time in the performing arts off stage. Yeah? If you look at the theatre, the architecture of the theatre gives you a clue to the amount of time you spend in different places. The stage is a tiny part of the theatre normally. There's backstage area, there's scene docks and dressing rooms and cafeterias and the green room, and we'll come to that. And that's because in the performing arts, at least, you spend 20 times more time off stage than on stage. And it's a thought that's been in my mind for many years. I've talked to businesses about where's the backstage of their life, because there didn't seem to be one. But it's really been on my mind at the moment, because I'm sure, you know, like you, these are odd times. And a lot of us are spending time on screens like this, hour after hour, day after day. And it's in a very real sense, like we're performing hour in, hour. Every day is beginning to feel a bit like showtime. And I thought now might be the time to see if we could create in this disaggregated, slightly distant world that we're living in. Could we create a digital green room, a place where performers of all shapes and sizes, from all walks of life, could come, kick their shoes off, take off the mask, hang out, and get some of the pleasure and the refreshment and the inspiration actually from hanging out with other performers. And that, in a very long sentence, is why we're here. So welcome to the green room. And now, thanks to the magic of turning the laptop, which is, I call it that because it's about turning the laptop. I'm going to invite you to the green room. I'm going to squeeze in, and here we are. Thanks to the magic of the Zoom room. Look, here we are in the green room. And welcome to the green room. Now, shortly we're going to be. It's no good me just being here. We're going to be joined by some of my creative friends, because the thing about the green room is it's full of performers who've come off the stage and they haven't yet gone home, and they're in this liminal mid space where they hang out and they tease each other and they learn from each other and they have a good time. And that's what we're going to recreate here. So in a minute I'm going to invite them in. And then we've also got a star guest, Bruce Daisley. Many of you will know him. He's not very starry, but he is a star and has got lots of performing under his belt as a former VP of Twitter. He was leading Twitter, I think, in the UK. He'll tell us, but through its sort of formative growth period. But during that time, he also got lots of insights and passion for thinking about how work works. How does work work? The lies and the truths, the joy, the pain. And written about it. It's written wonderful books. We'll come to that, but just thought that might be a theme of today, which is the joy of work, or the where do we find it? How do we preserve it? How do we grow it? Just checking my notes here to see what else, because Vanessa, who runs the PR of my life, will kill me if I don't say the right things here. So. Together we're going to hang, we're going to explore ideas, we're going to play, and hopefully we'll have a laugh. I don't know if anyone else has felt this, that there has been not a surfeit of laughter in recent weeks. And that's because we're dealing with some serious stuff. But as a lovely friend of ours once said, Ken Campbell, this is far too important to take seriously. So hopefully we'll engender a bit of laughter and a bit of lightness, and then we can be creative about some of the issues that some of us are facing. It'd be great. There might be some poetry, there might be some refreshment, there might even be some music. Who knows? Anything could happen. But before I start, I just want to say that this podcast, it's not a podcast, this broadcast, if you like, this simulcast, this streaming Zoom thing is brought to you by precisely no one. And that's to say we don't have a sponsor, and that it means that that's all good. This is free. And because it's free, it means that you don't have to pay anything. However, if you suddenly felt generous, it would be lovely. I'll say at the end that you're welcome to make a donation to my non-profit, Street Wisdom. But I was also thinking, given how much challenge and difficulty a lot of theatres are facing, and galleries and art centres, rather than paying us some money, why don't you go and just spend a bit of money on art? But buy a painting, commission some ceramics, buy some tickets. And it's not a donation, it's not charity, it's it's investment, right? Arts are the spine and the heart and the soul of culture, and we need to support them. So, end of lecture. And the other piece of bit I've got to say is sign up to updates on the green room. For the green room at David Pearl. Yes, if you want updates, and after this we'll be sending out highlights and also some information about the lovely people you're about to meet, then sign up on my website, davidpearl.net. And also you can subscribe to this YouTube channel, and that means that you'll be able to also see highlights and so on. So there we are. I'm going to, at some point, I'm going to go and check and see what 3-word headlines that we've got. We're live now. Let's just see. We're going over here. Anthony Ingle. Need less politics, says Anthony Ingle. Who was the first one? It was Joanna Pearl, and she's not getting a copy of my book because she is related. But Julie Dryber, she has a copy of the book, so you're not getting one. Sorry, Nick Hammond, likewise. Michael Chivers, you are the first person that I'm not sure I know. So curious, positive, and drinking, you win a copy of Wonderful. Well done. Need more yoga, says Bruce Carter. And I know Bruce Carter, and it is true. He does need more yoga. So, with no further ado, now let me introduce you to some of the glorious souls who are going to animate our green room for us. So, you're going to have to imagine tumultuous applause. I might be able to do tumultuous applause, although it might fuse the system. But oh yes. Tumultuous applause. So to that tumultuous applause, I'd love to introduce into the room the Choc entrepreneur, currently seeking new adventures, Chantal Cody, OBE. Shanti, are you there? There she is. She appears as if by Baroque magic. How lovely you're here. The motivational mover and shaker. A marvellous man behind the boom. Scott Morrison. Scott Morrison, are you here? He is here. He's here. Plus logo. We've run out of crowd cheering. We'll do it again. In fact, we won't. We'll stop that because the applause in your head is so much better. My friend, the psychosociologist, spiritual researcher and healer and lovely soul sister, Speride Ananas Amatista from Italy, from your parents' home. Ciao, buonasera. We've got a poet, Street Wisdom's own poet at large, who's on loan from the wonderful Good Chance Theatre, Philip Cowell. Whoa. Green Roomers, maybe we have to make our own applause, which is we have to do the mimed applause. Keep it coming. She's a craftivist. She's an experiential tour creator. She's the very best present buyer in the world. I know that. It's Melanie Stevenson from South London in primary colours. She's come, she's gone, she's come again. Hooray! Plus, you have a baby, you're a toy bull. We'll meet him later, her later. He's a top lawyer. He's a civil mediator. And yes, he's my brother, Jonathan Pearl. Jonathan Pearl is in the room. Blogger, cartoonist to the stars, man who scribbles on walls. Simon Heath, are you with us? Simon Heath, he's here. And finally, plus Glenfiddich. She's a soprano. She's a colleague of mine. She's a musician of multi sorts. She's a yoga teacher. She's a member of Impropera. She's an improviser. She's wonderful. She's Fiona Finsbury. Fiona, enter the room of Zoom. Hooray! Great to see you guys. So, can I ask you, unmute yourselves, and can I ask you, what are your 3-word headlines? The 3 words, summing up in 3 words where you are right now, Marlene. How are you feeling right now? What's your 3-word headline?
Mine was really quite sad. It was miss friends and working.
Miss friends and working. Working. Yeah. That's 3.5 words.
I've been furloughed. So, yes, that was mine. It's not very upbeat.
Furloughed. Who thought the word furlough was pronounced furluff? I thought it was furluff until I.
But you used to say picture skew as well.
Yes,
so
that is true. That is true. 3-word headline from Philip Cowell.
Sigh, giggle, love.
Thigh or sigh?
Sigh, not sigh. No, actually, maybe now it's thigh. Sigh, giggle, love.
Thigh, giggle, love. And that's directly from the mouth of a true poet. Chantal, your 3-word headline.
Has to be love Bonington Square, which is where I live, and fabulous community here. And we've been doing great things over the lockdown. So it hasn't felt very lockdown, to be honest.
A community. You've got a big sense of shared garden, haven't you? Shared space. Beautiful. Raise your hand if you love where you live right at the moment. I think Bruce is going to talk about love where you work, which is, do you love where you work? In fact, I had a client say to me the other day, I live where I work now. So basically, we live where we work. Scott, what's your 3-word headline, my friend?
Create new adventures.
Okay.
Because I'm about to create some new adventures. I'm rebooting next week. But also, I just think it's the thing that people need to do right now is create new adventures.
I love that. And because this in the green room, we take off the mask, we kick off our shoes, we exhale. Scott, you are a professionally energizing person. You're brilliant. But are there moments where you close the door and just think, oh, God.
Can I tell you what my original 3 words were? Yes. As we're all friends, shitting my pants.
Well, there you are.
Because for both, it's like anything, right? Whenever you're about to embark on anything new, it is terrifying. But also, we're doing this as new, and we're kind of broadcasting live, and it's quite scary. So everything's quite scary, but we'll try and get through it with adventures.
It's beautiful you say that, because that feeling I've had in my stomach. I mean, when you said that, I felt another 30% of my personality arrive in my body, because I've been keeping the balls up in the air, but there's that kind of performer's energy, and then you go, So thank you for that authenticity. But no more. Remember, we're British. Not too much authenticity. We rot from the inside. Esperida, who's certainly not British and doesn't rot from the inside. She's I can't really sum you up, but Espy, if I may. What's your 3-word headline? Do you have one?
Starting new lifeline.
Starting new lifeline. And could you say that in Italian, just to give us all a frisson of joy?
Inizio di una nuova linea di vita.
Hey.
Okay.
And again.
It's just, thank you. Occasionally, just to charge us up, we're going to ask you to just read the bus ticket or just anything, the instructions on your iron, but in Italian, if you would. Johnny, what's your 3-word headline?
Counting my blessings, I would say.
And what would be blessing number 1?
Health and family, and generally not having as crap a time as a lot of people are having. Incredibly lucky.
You worked, Johnny. You've been doing some. We'll talk about it maybe a bit later. But you've been in and out of prison, but not for the in order to help in prisons. How is it in there? It must be scary for people.
It's very scary for people. Very, very scary, and very lonely as well. Very lonely.
And as a visitor, is that part of your thing? Is people like to connect, to speak, to
visiting prisons is such an important part of the experience for family and for the people in prison, and connecting and staying connected with their lives, and helping for rehabilitation. It's absolutely vital. And of course, there's been no visits for more than 100 days to prisons. There's been a lockdown.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Wow. I salute you. Fiona Finsbury.
My 3 words is something that I saw on a petrol pump in Thailand on New Year's Eve this year, and it is "Singer Get Rich."
Tell us, what are the? And is that a prediction or a statement of the current situation?
Listen, I saw it and I thought that is my manifesto for 2020. Singer, get rich. I still believe.
And for you, it's been, you had numbers of roles lined up and stuff like that. It's been, there have been highs and lows, right? There have been tears and frustration and stuff, but there are also good days.
Yeah, absolutely. It was this really, for me, felt like a year where everything was lining up, and I'd lined up back to back operas, which was so exciting, and then all of it disappeared within a week. So it's been a real process of grieving, and then as a phoenix rising from the ashes and saying, okay, what can I do in light of all this? What now? How do I break through and survive?
That's beautiful. And you did manage to get some financial support to learn an opera role.
Yeah. I applied for some money from the Arts Council, which they kindly awarded me, to learn 2 roles. So I'm learning Tatiana and the Governess, which are actually behind me on my piano. So yes. And
so I love the idea that opera sopranos are key workers. You're keeping our soul and spirituality alive. Is there a line that you've learned that you'd like to share with us? And that's a rhetorical question. Because we'd love you to share a line. What's a line that pops to mind?
Your honor creates the courage that I need to offer you my heart forever.
That's like a vocal receipt back to the Arts Council. That's where your money went, and worth every penny. Beautiful, Fiona. Thank you. Simon, before we meet Bruce, I'd love to Simon, I know you express yourself usually through graphics, but what 3 words that kind of sum up where you are?
I had 6 in 2 different sentences. The first was need more scotch, but I'm okay for the next kind of hour. And And the other was Down with Work. When I was at school, there was a great book called Down with School. And I like this idea of Down with Work. It's slightly subverting the idea that we need work. Is there a post-work world coming? And how do we support people through that? And what mechanisms and systems do we need to make that happen?
Simon, not only are you a genius graphic recorder, but you're the perfect link man. In fact, I'm going to hand the ball to you now, because that was the perfect link to Bruce Daisley. He's champing at the bit. He's prowling in the wings. But before he comes in, I know he wanted to come in. I just want to read the rules of Green Room, right? Because it's like Fight Club. There are some rules here, okay? And I thought I would throw some together and see what you think of them, and I'll see if I can find them. Where are they? Talk amongst yourselves, sing amongst yourselves. Good. Well, hey, marvelous. The first rule of Green Room, which I'm now making up, is performers only. And what that means is it's not a place for autograph hunters. It's not a place for the audience. It's not a place for your agent. It is a sacred space in which we performers can hang. And when I say we performers, I want to be very clear that I'm talking about performers in the widest sense. That's anybody who's trying to do anything in this world and needs to enroll and inspire other people, you're a performer. Everyone on this call, YouTubers out there, I see you, I feel you, and you are all part of Green Room. It's a place where wherever we're performing in our lives, can gather. Second, no performance. We don't have to perform here. We can be crap. We can make mistakes. We can trip over. We can and must fail. This third rule is we don't know. I see in front of me people, and Bruce is also one who is a lot of the time teaching, inspiring, solving, helping other people solve and create things. And there's a feeling sometimes that you sort of need to know the answer. And I think what's nice is we have a space where we don't know the answer. We might have some good questions, but we don't have to know. Yeah. And I think the final rule of Green Room is thou shalt fiddle with things. Now, the reason I say that is because I've noticed in green rooms around the world, there's usually someone knitting, there's someone doing yes, Asperdo, you've got that looks like tarot cards to me. Asperdo, by the way, is top drawer when it comes to tarot. I have to say, she is the best I've ever come across. Amazing. So if you were to be doing some tarot, well, that'd be amazing. Who else? People seem to find it's meditative. It's a way of, imagine we've just come off stage and we're about to go back on stage at 7:30, back into the world. And now we're hanging out. Has anyone got any other things that you're doing to fiddle? Yes.
I've already been fiddling.
You've been fiddling. What have you been fiddling with, Philip?
Well, look at this. I just feel like there's loads of haikus in the Green Room. So I've just everyone's a performer. We don't know. Thou shalt fiddle with things. That's a pretty good haiku. Need more scotch. Down with work. Liking my life. You know what I mean? There's all these I love these little haiku-ification moments.
Oh, that's great.
I'll keep scribbling.
Will you continue to transform our meandering nonsense into something, transform it into gold, spin it into pure gold? Marlene, what have you got there?
I've been making masks.
Oh, fantastic.
I've made so many masks.
Today,
I've made about 30. I'm going mad with masks. I've also embroidered a vulva.
Fantastic.
For a reason, for my daughter. So that.
Say more. The lovely Ruby, say more.
The lovely Ruby Rare is a sex educationalist, and I'm making her some. We call them my atheist prayer flags, and this is going to be one of them. So. Fantastic.
I want a mask, by the way. We've talked. I'm losing them as quick as I'm getting them, but I'll take 3. I'll take 3 right now. That's done.
Now that's a bit pushy, but yes, okay.
Because I'll leave them. They'll disappear. And it's very ironic because this is the place we take off the mask in the Green Room. But of course, there's masks and there's masks. So thank you for that. Johnny, are you fiddling, or do lawyers not fiddle? It's not billable. We lost you. Yeah. Keep your finger on the bar.
I'm scribbling.
Oh, you're scribbling.
A lawyer's, that's a curse, but I spend my whole time scribbling and writing and
you also, Johnny is a mean painter, I have to say. This is a lovely painting. Chantal, are you fiddling, or what have you got there? We need you to unmute yourself, yeah.
I'm meditating, but I might do something later.
Okay. Whenever I see Chantal is a goddess of chocolate. She's transformed the way that Britain and probably Europe, maybe the whole world, thinks about chocolate. And so it's a bit like when you're around Chantal, you think, oh God, I hope she's got some chocolate, but I can't ask. But hopefully she's going to do something chocolatey. So no pressure, Chantal. But Fiona's sung ... So feel no pressure. Simon, we can see you're scribbling and fiddling, which is wonderful. Fiona, what do you have there?
I'm quite literally fiddling with my...
I love what you did there. Literally fiddling. Marvellous. Okay, well, look, without any further ado, I'm going to invite, we'll need a drum roll. Actually, Fiona, we need if we have a band, and we probably will when we take this live and around the world, we need a kind of walk down theme for Bruce to come into. Normally there'd be da 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 da, and he would come on. So can you provide Bruce's podcast? Bruce's book is called The Joy. I've got it. I've just been reading. He made me cry earlier on today. But I think it's called The Joy of Work, or Make Work a Joy. He'll tell us. But let's take the words, The Joy of Work, and see if we can improvise something. Bruce, forgive me if I got the title of your book wrong, but this is The Green Room. We don't have to get it right, okay? So, with no further ado, Bruce, press the camera button, and we welcome you into The Green Room. There he is.
There.
Hey.
Hello.
Bruce Daisley is in the room.
I was debating going under the desk and sort of performatively coming up like that. Just a bit like in the old days, I loved a good gig at the O2. You go and see Britney. They call it a boinger. They put them down under the stage and then they boing them up. Adds to the fun. Lower budget boinger.
That's right, and there you are. We will imagine the smoke, but you've got a beautiful. Tell us about the design over your left ear.
What that? That is a doodle. I really love accessible art, and that is a doodle of someone has drawn Beirut. It's like a cartoon, so you can see the shape of Beirut. Beirut is this sort of wonderful city of chaos, and someone's doodled it, and it's a wall sticker. So even if you live in rented accommodation, wherever you live, you can. And I went into a Beirut art shop, and they sold like two. I was like, oh, shall I just buy all of them? But I bought this sticker of Beirut, so I quite like that.
When I hear the word Beirut, it takes me back to time. I remember as a little kid, sometimes you were allowed to stay up to watch, and you'd see the news, and it was usually not going to be Vietnam and stuff like that. And I remember there was a war in Beirut, well, several, right? But there was a war, and I remember it was like that poem, Philip, that poem where Icarus falls from the sky, but the world carries on. I think it's a Yeats poem or something. I remember looking at Beirut, and there was guns going off and bombs and stuff. And in the bottom right-hand corner, there were people selling vegetables. It's like the market continued amidst the chaos. And I just think there's something very, well, perhaps there's something relevant about that, about how work continues despite the madness of the world.
Yeah.
But
it's a wonderful place, actually. For me, I remember vividly Brian Keenan's account of being a hostage in Beirut. It's just one of the most incredible, human, powerful books. It's like hard to leave that book untouched, because he looks how his whole personality, his whole psyche is dismantled. And he really is very candid about how it sort of dissembled him. And, so I really have the connection with that bad side of Beirut, and then I've got my partner's Lebanese, and so they would be grief-stricken if I remotely mentioned any of like the war-torn past of the place. But it's a fabulous a collection of energy, and it's a fun anarchistic place.
No, it's interesting you say that, because we'll you know what, here's what I want to do is not often a star drops into the green room and the rest of the company are all like they want to be friends, but I feel like you're my special friend, so I'm going to pull rank for a minute, and I'm going to say, let's come over to we'll meet at the coffee, you know, at the espresso machine, and they can all go and do what performers do, which is they turn off their cameras for a little bit, listening, and then what they do is they call their agent and they gossip with each other about how they could have done it better. So we're going to talk. Let's talk for 10 minutes, you and I, and then we'll usher them back in. But anyone's got any comments, thoughts? Green roomers, you're very welcome to put stuff in chat, which I will ignore, of course. But if you're on YouTube, we will do please questions for Bruce, thoughts, whatever. And Scott, I can still see you. You're gorgeous, but turn your camera off. There's a love. Go on. So, Bruce, it's just you and me. It's like the world is listening in. I just wanted to pick up what you were saying there, and I want to segue to, you know, your life and work and so on. But that thing you said about the sort of the good and the bad side, one of the things that struck me working with business, when I started working with business, having been much more in the theatre and the arts before, was that in business it seemed to me that people really favoured the upside of things, you know, positive, and that somehow anything that was dark and problematic was kind of marginalised and it was a problem to be sorted. But in the arts, it's almost the reverse, that, you know, a player of film that doesn't have a problem to be sorted, doesn't have lesions and shadows and difficulty, isn't a piece of art. And so I love the fact that I did talk about that, about depression, and about the fact that darkness is part of wholeness. That experience, but being my experience anyway, that to live a whole life, you need the Brian Keenan and you need the light. Anyway, end of blather. How are you, Bruce?
Very well, thank you. Very well. It's been a sort of a strange time, hasn't it? For me, the fourth year of lockdown is proving rather more agreeable than a couple of the other years. But I'm sort of liking the baby steps we're taking into freedom. It's really interesting. There was a wonderful article by Joel Golby, who's a columnist in Vice and The Guardian. And he talked about how early in lockdown, he saw a group of 6 individuals sitting in a park together. And he sort of looked over, scolding them, thinking, well, I hope they live in the same household. And we've found these strange things happening to us, haven't we? Where we've become a little bit more judgmental than we thought we were. And, you know, people are, you know, we've all got different temperatures that we're willing to take when it comes to emerging from lockdown. But yeah, I'm happy that I've emerged with my sanity intact.
Yeah, beautiful. You and I were talking a little bit this morning just to kind of synchronize. Actually, before we go on, talk about that. Tell me about you in synchronizing. You have a lovely take on it, I find. The book, which is called Joy of Work, right?
Yes.
There's a lot in it on synchrony, being in the same at the same tempo and connecting together. You and I talked about this. Those who don't know, Bruce is in my book. We go for a little walk in Wonderful, and we talked about. Tell me a little bit about what synchrony means for you.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Effectively, you know, if you delve into some of the science, whether it's anthropology, psychology, there was a wonderful piece of research that really sticks vividly in my head of a wonderful researcher at Oxford University called Emma Cohen. And Emma did this really fascinating experiment where she took some of those Oxford University rowers that we've seen on TV. How that makes up a television show, I've never understood. But she took some of those rowers and she put a group of them individually on rowing machines, and she asked them to row for 10 minutes. Then she put another group on rowing machines together, and she asked them to row in sync with each other. And the interesting thing she discovered that they could do about the same amount of exercise, they could expend the same amount of energy, but the ones who rowed in sync with each other had twice the endorphins, had twice the pleasure hormones of the ones who'd rowed alone. And we see this with people who sing in choirs. You can put strangers together. You can ask them to sing 3 or 4 ABBA songs. Then you ask them at the end of the experience, what was that like? How do you find these people? They'll say, I love these people. What wonderful people. They're strangers. But there's something about us doing things in synchrony with others, which seems to have this magical effect. And if you've ever found yourself exercising alongside someone, singing, marching, armies around the world have appropriated this. When we feel in synchrony with other people, it seems to elevate our experience. It seems to be this transformative thing. And I think to some extent, it's what a lot of us are missing right now. There's a lot of us, you know, as we've gone through these stages of lockdown, a lot of us have started to be willing to say, I'm kind of missing something. I'm kind of missing laughing at the same time as people. I'm kind of missing sort of being in an audience and applauding something. Why? Because there is something deeply rewarding about being in synchrony. And, you know, I'm sort of resolute that that was one of the things when work was good, when we felt that there was something connecting, there was something powerful, there's something religious to work. It was when those moments of synchrony really sort of touched us.
I've got to ask. Thank you so much. I've got to ask you about a little bit, if I may, about your kind of corporate life. I don't know how you describe it, but you're a kind of bridge person in the sense of whenever you're described, there's the Twitter and you know, your kind of professional public life, and then there's you as the author, you as the speaker, and so on. But if we can talk a bit about your experience at Twitter. How was it creating synchrony and joy there? Was it a place that was naturally quite joyful, or did something that, as you know, as the boss, you had to work at?
When I first started Twitter, there was about 400 people globally in Twitter. So it was this extraordinary thing where, you know, you knew all of the people consumed in making decisions, and it was a tiny business. Actually, it had global renown, but it was a tiny business. It was, you know, there's probably catering departments at other companies that are bigger than how Twitter was then, and it was a great place to work, largely because the internet and the way that we used the web was being invented before our very eyes, and there were definitely stages of it. I remember joyfully how fun, and you know, it felt like a wonderfully trivial platform, but in a joyful way. You know, people describing and co-commentating on the London Olympics was one of the most joyous things. And you know, I guess the overall experience of the internet really, and our experience of the web, is that often we sort of encounter these new inventions, these new discoveries, and we're filled with the hope and the possibility of what they're capable of. And it's only over time that the realities, and maybe it's best that we embrace things with optimism first, but it's only over time that we realize, oh gosh, right, that has consequences we hadn't imagined. So, you know, very much that was sort of the journey I went on. The job transformed over 8 years I was there. Prior to that, I was at YouTube. So similar experiences there where, you know, no one had imagined when dogs on skateboards were what populated YouTube, that, you know, the things it would become used for. So it's sort of, you know, I always felt to be in a room with Jack Dorsey, to be in a room with the people running YouTube was just like a great honor to be sitting watching some of the decisions, some of the great decisions, some of the missteps that were inevitably made by humans, and when we make decisions.
It's beautiful. You're upbeat and provocative about work. And what I love about your work is that you're not frightened about sort of outing some of what you call the lies of work. You just give us a flavor of that, if you would. What are some of the things that you think are just the lies that we tell ourselves about work?
Yeah, well, look, probably one of the most adept things that Silicon Valley ever did was try and pretend that their workplace cultures was in any way different or fundamentally, you know, more caffeinated than anyone else's. It was what they brilliantly did is they realized that this was another way to market themselves. And so, you know, I was really fascinated when I first joined Google. I was imagining that I was going to be plugged into the matrix, and then we were going to be on this sort of this network of just better cognition that I wasn't there before. And of course, that's not the case at all. Anytime you see, we had some glorious slides in Google offices that I visited around the world. And, but let me tell you, the experience at work was never enhanced by those things. They're all about marketing. They're all about getting someone to pull their phone out of their pocket to share a moment of it, because it becomes a sort of self-perpetuating marketing device. Yeah. Look, and I guess the big thing for me right now is probably a lot of us don't realize it, but work as we knew it is finished. And that inevitably sounds like hyperbole. But what we're witnessing, sort of like we're Bruce Willis in The Sixth Sense, and we're the only one who doesn't know that we're dead. But the notion that somehow we're all going to return to exactly what work used to be like, and all the formations of it are financially not going to happen, culturally they're not going to happen. And so the really interesting thing right now is that, you know, the moment we can realize that work as we knew it, that all of us in the same building every day together is gone. As soon as we realize that, we start saying, right, let's build something new and different. And actually, the most important decisions along the way there are about synchrony. You hear some wonderful things along the way. There's some of the companies that are completely remote. And the reason why I say that the office as we know it is gone is because organizations as diverse as one of the London councils told me, Barclays Bank said, Morgan Stanley have said that they're never going back to the office the way it was. This and. I was chatting to a major raw materials product company last week, and they said we're not going back to the way things were. So every company is in this realization where some degree of home working is now going to be inevitable. But the challenge of that is that if you look at the companies that have allowed some degree of self-determining anarchy and said, look, come in when you want, don't come in when you want. What they quickly realize is the will-o'-the-wisp, the genie escaped the bottle. Why? Because the office, our workplaces as they used to be, had a network effect to them. The reason why your green room metaphor works is because there's kind of a load of people knocking around. And so the collision of all these different intellects actually produces magical things. The moment we say to people, come in when you want, work from home when you want, well, what happens is someone makes the trek in, they set off. The average commute in the UK is about 74 minutes. They make a 74-minute commute in. They get to the office, there's no one there. The next time that they're sitting there on a wet Wednesday, they'll think, you know, I might just log on now. I'm immediately in work. Why would I make the journey? And so, interestingly, the time we're in, firstly, work as we knew it is gone. And there's going to be some stages of grief where some of us will be in denial, bargaining. We'll be trying to sort of work our way through that. But the best people who are navigating this are saying, okay, we've recognized that synchrony is actually one of the things that propels something magical in humans. How can we build a different form of synchrony into the way we work? So one of the organizations who sort of done remote work for a long time, they make WordPress. WordPress silently, and while we weren't noticing, powers about a third of the websites in the world. And this company that makes WordPress, they're called Automatic. They say the old model of work was you spend 11 months a year at work, a month a year away from work. Our model, on holiday and vacation, our model is you spend 11 months a year away from work, 1 month a year with colleagues. So put your pet sitter on call, you know, fill granny's freezer with frozen meals, because for 1 week a quarter, we're going to get together and it's going to be like this energizing, sort of effervescent coming together. Wow, that's really interesting, because firstly, it's sort of very mindful of the way that humans and gatherings, there's a wonderful book called The Art of Gathering a couple of years ago, gatherings can be this incredible spiritual uplifting thing, but they're thinking about that far more intentionally. A lot of us are going to stumble into this thing where we're going to reduce the office footprint that we've got, smaller space, but you know, work just doesn't feel the same because I never see anyone.
Well, that's a perfect segue. I'm going to invite the colliders back in the room, because I've really been feeling there's questions coming up in the chat column from them, and I think we should collide, because I think that it is about, you know, Thich Nhat Hanh, the Buddhist philosopher, says, I think he says the next Buddha will be a group, not an individual. And I'm not suggesting it's this group, but I'm just the idea that different-minded, like-spirited people. I can feel people want to climb back in. So questions for your thoughts. Scott was, and bang on cue, you know, Scott was wondering, you know, how are we going to find the joy of work when work is increasingly a matter of balancing home and work? Scott, you said it better than that. But what was your thought?
No, I think you did brilliantly, actually, David. My point was, you know, we're always seeking to find joy in work, because quite often for a lot of people, work isn't joyful necessarily. And part of that escape is, you know, you leave work and you come home, and then you've got the joy of everything at home, you know, your family, your wife, your kids, your husband, whatever. And you have these two quite separate lives. and you're trying to bring a bit of the niceness into work, and then all of a sudden we're all thrown into this huge melting pot, and home is work and work is home, and all those different strands of joy are intermingled and very hard to pull apart. So with this massive change, I just thought it'd be interesting to think about, well, how do we think about the joy of work when where the joy is intermingled with home? And is there a book in Joy of Home? Or is there a book in Joy of Homeschooling? Would be a good book, actually, I think, right now. But anyway, just your thoughts, Bruce. I'd be really keen to think what you think.
Yeah, someone said to me a few weeks ago, actually, they said, look, you know, obviously this is a big disruption. Is there any evidence that you can build communities of passion and connection via screens? I said, let me tell you about the internet. Because, you know, like the web's been doing those things, but in very different ways. And so, you know, what does it mean? Well, if you think that doing the old things that you used to do is going to produce the same energy, that you're possibly wrong. First thing is, a lot of us are rose tinting the office. We're all now remembering fondly those moments where we're in hysterics. Someone fell off their chair. Someone had a bit too much to drink one day. Someone produced cake and there was just mass hysteria. All those moments, they forget the fact that, you know, if we probably went back and took a snapshot of our office in February, there probably were sort of grey, silent places with us pecking out responses to emails. So we've rose tinted the office to some extent, but I'm really inspired by, you know, when you hear about those companies thinking we're going to get together 1 week a quarter, I think actually for me, it's all about like those communities of interest that have exploded in the era of the internet. Things like Comic-Con, I always think of. I've sort of thought about that. Comic-Con is like, you know, for decades, there were science fiction fans, comic fans, fantasy fans. But actually, it was the advent of them communicating together that then sprung up these big, passionate online communities that then became like these really vivid Technicolor events. And I think that's probably what we need to think about. I think we're going to value getting together more than ever before. But, you know, we need to be intentional about it. One of the things we're learning about the way that work is right now is that what we were able to tolerate sitting in meeting after meeting, the average British person spends 16 hours a week in meetings. When we transplant that to Zoom calls, it's exhausting. And, you know, the best version of us is paying attention. The worst version of us is kind of drifting off doing emails. So you get to the end of the day where, you know, it hasn't been a very agreeable experience. We're sort of feeling a degree like something's gone wrong. And I think, you know, the more intentional we are, I'm really interested. There's a website, you probably know this website, called Glassdoor, which is a place that people can go and post reviews, like Amazon reviews of companies. And I think, you know, in a couple of years, there's going to be this like really vivid spectrum of different experiences. Some people saying this place is just non-stop Zoomageddon. It's just non-stop Zoom calls. I can't feel my legs. And someone else is going to say, right, I'm on 3 or 4 hours of video calls a week, but they're like these energized moments of connection where we spark ideas off each other and we go away to be inspired. When we get together, it's these moments of joyful connection. Right. The opportunity is massive. Yeah.
I'm going to come to Simon, but Simon asked something which was, I think, relevant because a lot of us think of work as knowledge work, you know, and it revolves around offices. You were talking there, Simon, about the panel beater in Solihull. So someone who's used to more, for whom work is more physical. And I'm thinking also Esperide, also, you know, from your perspective, work. There are very different types of work in the community that you're involved in, but also this notion that Bruce just mentioned of intentionality, how intention can change what we do. But sorry, Simon, what was your point? What was your thought there?
So I always think like, who is this for? So this is cool for. We keep talking about the office, and very few people, you know, lots, millions of people. So recently we've been out every Thursday night clapping for people who don't really work in offices. They don't have a choice to work in an office. They don't have great technology. They don't have a lot of the kind of privilege that comes with working in, tech companies with massive budgets. And lots of venture capital behind them. And so I keep coming back to, like, who is this for? And it's kind of tied in with all sorts of other conversations around privilege at the moment. It's kind of like, you know, we're steeped in this stuff. I've been there. I worked in the city for many years. I know all this stuff that Bruce is talking about. I get this stuff because that's my lived experience. But I've also, my lived experience is working in the post room at the bank. I eventually became a senior leader in, and the understanding the lived experience of the people who I work alongside. So I think we just need to be a little bit careful about pronouncement rather than kind of empathy, and that comes back to this getting in sync, right? So this synchronicity is about being in sync with everyone, not just the people who look like us.
Yeah. So, and by the way, I don't want Bruce to feel like he has to answer this. It's like he's here to provoke us. It's great, and I'm going to come. Well, I mean, you can, Bruce, but I'd love to hear from Esperide. You know, Esperide. I sometimes describe the Esperide travels the world. There's many things, but some of the work that we've done together is in this place where she lives in Italy, which I describe as a bit like a spiritual eco-kibbutz. And it's a kind of communal approach to working and living. What are you seeing, Espi, from your perspective about how work might change, and how can we find common cause even if the structures get very disrupted? Do you have a view on that?
Yeah, and it's not easy for me to answer just on work, because I think it's a little wider than that. And I feel and resonate with both what Bruce and Simon were saying. I don't even feel there is a contradiction. I think it's just timing. So I think we are starting a major transformation of society and not just work. And as in all major transformations, sometimes there are sectors of society that embrace or can embrace that before others. So what really resonates with me is the fact that this is helping at least a part of the population in the beginning, to that the population of the offices, the one was actually the most cut off from this idea of community, that actually it is beautiful to create community. And when we are in sync, we can find enough energy to go and work for a quarter with that energy, much more than if we were actually meeting every day. So I think that's a gem of realization that can then be used in many other sectors. It's also true that I feel that there are people that are less privileged than those that work in the offices. That's true, but maybe in those sectors of life, they are already closer. So there is a different way in which they relate. It's very interesting, for instance, if we look at what's happening with the reaction to COVID in Africa. We know that the governments there are, absolutely not apt to really taking an answer, but people there are so used of taking care of themselves by themselves that immediately the local community started to really be present for each other. And that's why they're so much more resilient than in other parts of the world. So I think that, for me at least, I love concentrating on the new positive trends that we can see and how we can use them with consciousness and awareness to really transform little by little, with the right sync, with the right time, the right timeline, all the aspects of society. Because I do believe that the only way we can have a future as humanity and not just as work is if we go back to community and we go back living closer to nature and listening to the trees. So everything that helps us in that direction, I think, is perfect. The green room, the trees are green.
The trees are green.
The answers are going to come.
Oh, there's a comment from you, the YouTubiverse, Gib Bullock, who's sort of person. I'm sure he will end up in the green room at some point. But he was saying, a colleague and friend of mine, he was wondering whether there's going to be some renaissance of the rural parts of the country, because people are not traveling in the city won't necessarily have the same magnetic effect, and that it's just as easy to work in a rural setting and so on. Marlene, you're saying that you're
because the new mayor of or the mayor of Paris, who's just been re-elected, talks about the 15-minute city. The idea that you won't have to travel across the whole city, but everything you'll need will be in 15 minutes. And there's an old architect, Cedric Price, the guy who designed the Pompidou Centre, amongst other things. But Cedric Price used to have like this idea of describing cities through this metaphor of eggs. And like the old version of a city had the hard calcified shell on the outside, and then we went to something closer to a fried egg, there was a sort of dense, yolky centre, but then this sort of dispersed suburban outline. And then the final version of Cedric Price's model was scrambled eggs, where rather than sort of having these distinct centres where we go and live a different aspect of our lives, different personality, actually it's all within the same moment of each other. And I guess, that's one of the things that a lot of us are probably more aware of nature in the last 14 weeks than we have been for a long time. And there does seem to be a sense of a trend there.
Yeah. You were, and I'm going to come to you, Chantal, in a minute, because I think you also got a take on community, and also you might have some chocolate in your pocket. So I'm just hoping that. But Marlene, you were mentioning, I think Fiona was saying that you're in a field where you need other people. You can't, you actually can't be done.
I can't do my job. I can't do it because I'm a tour guide at both South Bank Centre doing architecture and behind the scenes tours, and at the Royal Opera House. I need people. I need to be in a building, and also working around all the stuff that goes on in both places. I so miss being part of an audience and seeing costumes made and all of those creative conversations that go on. So it's great for everyone who has a more office-based job that they can transport to their bedroom, but there are loads of people that just can't. And I don't know about you, Fiona. When we had our pre-meeting, we were both the ones who said we're quite lonely, and I just really miss being part of something. And these Zoom squares, we have endless meetings. It feels a bit like being in prison, and then we turn off, and you're just left in your room on your own. So it's not. I'm just really looking forward to getting back to work. Yeah.
And to pick up something Bruce said as well, I've for many years been, as a sideline, been talking to people about meetings and people complaining about meetings, and my feeling was we don't appreciate the luxury and the power of being with other people, and we squandered it. And I think people now realize, when we do get together, I think there's going to be amazing theatre, and there's going to be extraordinary music making, and there's going to be sort of deeply appreciative. I think the animal in us knows what it feels like to be a little bit isolated. Chantal, I wish you could. I'm hoping that you can sprinkle the unifying power of chocolate amongst us now.
Chocolate.
So tell us a bit. I'm going to play some music, and I want you to take us through a chocolate ritual. Would that be all right?
Absolutely, yes.
You're a Baroque girl, so...
I am a Baroque girl.
She was the founder of Rococo. She's on to other things now, but any other addicts of Rococo, she's the...
I know you said no autographs, but...
Yes.
I've actually... Bruce already signed that for me. I walked him round the corner outside the door of the green room.
I thought first he said The Joy of Choc, and I thought, no, that's Bruce's book.
That is a book in itself.
So Chantal, what is going on? What is this ritual? Explain.
Here? I'm going to make you a most delicious chocolate pudding for dinner, or we'll share it after this. And it's so simple. I've got a little flask. I made some Earl Grey tea in it. I've got my little cup of chocolate. So this is kind of idiot proof. You've got 2 cups. If you've got more people, you can have more cups, but I'm just doing this small one. So I'm going to fill up my little cup with tea. I've got my cup full of chocolate, and I'm going to put them both in this container. So I'm going to pour this on. Then we can talk for a minute because that needs to melt. These wonderful cool bottles keep things warm as well.
So tell us about the chocolate, Shanti. What is it?
Chocolate, that one is from Madagascar, and it's an amazing, beautiful, bright, fruity chocolate. I don't know if you noticed when I held up the piece, but it was actually not very dark, more red brown. Has wonderful notes of citrus and plum and raspberry. So really, really delicious. But funnily enough, the French who first of all promoted it, it went down very badly in France because they like things to be much more buttoned up and subtle and smooth. But then, you know, they're brilliant marketing people. So they said, no, it's full of bright notes. It's like a wonderful Beaujolais or something. So that was great. But the other chocolate, which I really love, and I would love to tell you about, is from Grenada in the Caribbean, which is, and the same with this one in Madagascar, is made from the tree through to the bar right there in the country. So one of my big things that's come through from all this time, the pandemic, the Black Lives Matters, is that so many of our jobs and industries are based on these old-fashioned models of slavery and colonialism, and chocolate is one of the very worst offenders. And it's time that, you know, we break that model and rebuild something very, very good, which my dear friend Mott Green and his colleagues Doug Brown and Edmund Brown have been doing for the last 20 years there in Grenada, and I've been working with them. They've been so inspiring. Anyway, I think this probably had a long enough time. So I've got my whizzy thing. I'm going to just...
Technical term. That sounds good.
That's it. How difficult was that? Now...
It was for us. It was super easy. We just watched you work.
So this is actually vegan, and I'm making something which I'll show you because I've got one I made earlier, like all good Blue Peter people. So that will make 2 cups of fantastic. Okay, so there's the one I made earlier. I made this about 2 hours ago. So you can see from that really liquidy thing, we now have the most amazing chocolate mousse.
Oh my God.
And just,
my saliva glands just went boing.
I mean, I've done tea. You could just have water, but you could add in some lemon rind, some fresh ginger. You're only limited by your imagination of what you put in there. Am I going to eat some of this? Would you like to try it?
Yes, we would. Can you summon through the power of language what it tastes like?
Well, it's
By the way, we'll believe you if you say it's got notes of burnt newspaper. We'll say, "Oh yes, I get that."
I've already described the chocolate to you, but actually, amazingly, you're never supposed to mix water with chocolate. One of the golden rules. But it is creamy and delicious. That's completely vegan. You've got all those lovely bright notes coming through, those fruity, chocolatey notes, and it's really light. That's fantastic.
It's like, oh, shut
Where
up.
could- where-
Carry on. Hooray!
Where can we get the chocolate from?
Oh, well, at the moment, that's a little bit difficult, but we've got in our Bonington Square, actually, is where we can get it. But you can talk to me. We can have a chat about it later.
Maybe, Shanti, you could also, afterwards, people that sign up to YouTube or register at my website, davidpearl.net, will get a little dossier about everyone on this call. And if anyone wants to continue conversation with any of them, then that's the way to do that. Thank you, Shanti. I feel both... When I was a kid, and my mother may be watching this, so this is a confession, but Johnny and I think we both used to do this. We weren't allowed to eat the peanuts. That was like a big deal, salted peanuts. So I used to, when they went out, we found where they were, and we would eat them, but in the packet. So you would chew them, and you had the kind of sensation that you were eating, but you didn't taste it. That's kind of what just happened for us with you. But I suppose it's a lockdown joy. You know, it's kind of so near, but yet so far. But somehow I'm sensing, I smell chocolate through the keyboard. You're a magician. You really are.
Thank you, David.
Well, thank you. What did people? Philip, you enjoyed that. I can see.
I enjoyed that.
Tell us, just tell us something, because
I'm going to tell you.
Good.
I'm going to tell you something, which is you inspired me as ever, David. You mentioned that poem earlier with the Icarus scene. I was like, it's definitely not Yeats. I couldn't remember who it was. And it's right. It's good to be not. We weren't right, but it's Auden. It's the Musée des Beaux-Arts. I won't read it. It's too long. But what's really good about it is he's so good at, really. This is W.H. Auden, the English poet. He's so good at the really quite profound truth, but in the very everyday language. So just the opening is, about suffering, they were never wrong, the old masters. And his main point is he's looking at this painting of Bruegel's painting of, the Fall of Icarus. So you've got this sort of huge trauma, this huge tragedy. And the poet's observation of the painting is, this tragedy is happening, but there's so much everyday life going on. About suffering, they were never wrong, the old masters, how well they understood how it takes place while someone is eating or opening a window or just walking along. So all this ordinariness is happening, but you've got this incredible scene of the boy falling out of the sky. And what the synchrony for me is with a lot of this conversation is, particularly with this recent moment that we're going through, ongoing moment of COVID, of coronavirus, is the ordinariness of it. Just how this huge, humongous thing that's really difficult to understand, that's been so tragic for so many people. But yet, like in the Auden thing, in the poem, anyhow, in a corner, some untidy spot where the dogs go on with their doggy life, and the torturer's horse scratches its innocent behind on a tree. So we're, and even just talking about The Office just then, which is such an ordinary thing, and it's just made me feel, and I know it's a ordinary and a privileged experience as well to some extent, but it's the ordinariness of it has been rather healing, actually, just even thinking about that. So Musée des Beaux-Arts, W.H. Auden, there's my recommended reading.
Thank you. Can I just before we move to another splendid contribution, tell us, give us 2 minutes on Good Chance and puppets walking across the world. Just tell us a little bit about what you're doing with Good Chance.
Thank you so much. So I work for Good Chance Theatre, the theatre that began in the Calais Jungle refugee camp, set up by the two Joes, Joe Robertson, Joe Murphy, who very much went there to volunteer and then realized there was this massive gap, a kind of neutral town hall space where people could come together and not just, create art and make some theatre together, but actually just to share jokes, have conversations, make friends, that sort of thing. And that's really what they did. And then, we're just trying to do that all over. We were just about to put the dome up that we'd built in Calais on the US-Mexico border in Tijuana. So that couldn't happen because of the coronavirus. It will go up next year. We have got the play The Jungle, which came out of the Calais Jungle experience. That's going back to New York next year, we hope. But yes, we're working on an incredible new project called The Walk, which is very much another synchrony with street wisdom, which will involve huge puppet of a 9-year-old, beautiful 9-year-old refugee child called Amal, and she'll walk across Europe, and we'll walk with her, and we'll meet loads of people on the way, and we'll tell a story together, and it's going to be pretty exciting. So that'll be next year.
Again, make sure we have a link so people know how they can support that. It's
totally.
And again, it's this sense of, I think, emerging from emergency. I think I spend a lot of time thinking about future stories and how can we create stories we want to live. Bruce, I'm coming back to you, my friend. What's exciting you in terms of these shoots, things that you're seeing, new possibilities that are? I'd like everyone to think about that as we sort of, we're trundling towards the conclusion, if there is such a thing. But I'd love to think about things that are exciting people, that are giving them hope, giving them, they feel that helping them dream, helping them move forward. Bruce.
It'd be nice, wouldn't it, if we really did value the things when we get to re-encounter them as much as we told ourselves we would. So, you know, like anyone who found themselves like me thinking, I'm just fed up of my own cooking, then the joy of going back and someone cooking for us, or the joy of being in an audience for something, the joy of sort of stumbling back to your seat with clasping drinks and about to watch some music or some comedy. Definitely, I think, you know, I've missed laughter. It's been covered along the way, and I've definitely laughed, but I don't think I've laughed as much. And I don't think it's been as sort of, I don't think you could abandon yourself into it. I had a conversation with a Financial Times journalist, Lucy Kellaway, and she said the thing she was missing about the experience right now is she was missing being another person. She was missing putting other clothes on and becoming a different part of her identity. And I thought that was really interesting. So for me, look, you know, I've sort of longed for those things so much that I do hope that the moment we get to go back to live music, we savor how lucky we are to go back to it.
Yeah. I think that I resonate a lot with that. You know, street wisdom grew actually from a lot of the work that I've been doing with Esperide, but it grew and was sort of conceived in the mountains, in the sylvan brooks and in the rural hideaways. But the idea was to bring that to the city, which at the time and for many years was very noisy and very, very dissonant, and to try and find the beauty in the everyday, you know, to find the wonderful in the every day, really. Johnny, what are you excited? What's exciting you? Could be anything. Music, new ideas, new technologies. What's giving you hope?
A couple of things. I mean, I've been working for a VR startup for the last year, and funnily enough, this is their zeitgeist. I mean, it's been perfect for us because all of a sudden people have realized the importance of being immersed in a 2D world, how much more powerful it can be than just having a 2D experience like we're having now. The technology is mind-blowing, and where it can go is mind-blowing. So that's been great fun. And I've also been doing some work, as you said earlier, in a prison, and that's been really fascinating. And just talking about this this idea of isolation, actually one thing I should have maybe mentioned now is that there was a report out yesterday by the Howard League that young kids have been kept in isolation for 23 hours a day during this lockdown. And that has phenomenal mental health impacts on those people, and also even physical impacts. There are studies that show people who are held in solitary confinement for long periods of time, their hearing deteriorates, their eyesight deteriorate, sense of smell, all those things deteriorate as they're kept in isolation. So really quite horrifying stuff. The irony of it is that it's not kind of, binary, and actually there are some people who are anecdotally saying that actually prisons are a much better, a nicer place when people are locked up in their cells than when they're out. And there are a lot of studies saying that people feel safer when they're locked up than when they're out in general association. So again, there's a yin and the yang. There's, obviously real concern about isolation, but also appreciating that there are other things that are also wrong with prisons that need to be sorted out.
If Johnny, if it could, I think back to normal is a terrible phrase, but imagine there was full freedom. What would be the thing that you would most want to do that you haven't been able to do?
I haven't been restricted personally at all by this, I must say. I mean, my mediation has been tougher and it's been on Zoom. I prefer to do face-to-face mediation, but actually there are lots of pluses to Zoom mediation, including saving money and time and inconvenience of having to go to a meeting room and stuff. So I don't know. I mean, I hope that people learn good stuff from this, and I think people will, because I think people have had to be reflective about what they're doing and how they're working and how they're experiencing things, how they're appreciating their families. I mean, as a family, we've done more strange, weird things during lockdown than we had in the previous 3 months. I don't know. There have been some positives, and it's about being conscious of those.
Scott, what's exciting you? What's one thing that's putting a bounce in your step?
Well, somebody said to me a little while ago this wonderful quote. I won't use the expletive in it, but they basically said if aliens landed on the planet tomorrow, they'd ask to see the effing manager, and they were referring to, you know, amongst many other things, but they were certainly referring to the community and the community spirit that had kind of eroded, I think, quite significantly. I think the thing that excites me the most about what's happening is there has been a real sense of community. I mean, Shanti talked earlier about the community that she's in, and just people getting to know their neighbours, their neighbourhoods, people who live around them, looking after each other, all the kind of things that I remember when I grew up. You knew everyone in the place that you live, and now London doesn't feel quite as isolated and quite as big and quite as, you know, your neighbourhood suddenly feels a lot more close. And I think that's what excites me, is that, you know, and I'm desperately hoping, just like Jonathan was saying, I'm hoping that once we come out of this, that people really do get to appreciate the fact that they know the neighbour 2 or 3 doors down, that person did drop those things off for them. They did, you know, spend that time in the park with the kids, even at social distance, and they all made friends. And that keeps people together, because I think that's the most important thing.
Thanks, Scott. SB, you regularly involved in some very sort of global and sort of difficult to describe, but you know what I mean. What are you seeing? What are you seeing in the developmental, the consciousness side of things that's giving you hope? Maybe the wrong word, but that gives you energy.
Well, I think this is the first time ever in the history of our planet that we are really having a global conversation. And the global conversation is also about what really matters to us as humanity. So I think this is very exciting. I think that we are going to probably have more and more people that understand how important it is to be closer to nature, even just for the fact that we need to eat. And so, you know, this is going to become a key thing, not only that we need food to eat, but the quality of the food and the water and everything. And I think that this lockdown has also put, you know, a lot of emphasis on this. And on the other hand, the new technologies, they are developing much faster than was predicted. So I think that if we can have a little bit of consciousness, intelligence, and attention, and we marry these new things, you know, the new way of being in nature, the new way of creating community with the opportunities of the new technologies, we could very, very quickly completely transform the way we live on this planet. And when the aliens come down, then maybe they won't ask for the manager, because they will see, they will learn how to live as one while really appreciating our diversity.
Yeah, okay. It's beautiful. I think what would be great before we finish, because I'm conscious of the Earth time, I'd love to check in with you guys about what you've been fiddling with, in case any of you have been fiddling. And I think Fiona, it's time. I think we need to stick. If there was a band, you'd be the band, and you'd let us know it was fiddle time. How would you let us know that musically?
Because after all, aren't we all just dogs on a skateboard? After all, the apple's falling down from the sky. We had a fried egg city, now it's a scrambled egg city. Get on your skateboard and come down from the sky.
Yes. Invented right here, right now. How wonderful. Thank you so much. Philip,
I love that.
A poem has been emerging
Beautiful.
in the chat column. Would you mind?
I just a quick observation as well, that in a way I think I've been trying to do these haiku, which I just felt was the thing that was coming through. People speak kind of naturally in kind of haiku. It's like the first bits of your conversation are the first 2 lines, and then the last thing you say is generally that last little twist.
Yes.
So like your one, David, conceived in the mountains and the silver brooks, the beauty in the city. I kind of love that. And then there's one earlier on, notes of burnt newspaper, citrus, plum, and raspberry, future stories. And just the thing about haiku, I just want to say, everyone always gets really het up about the 5-7-5 syllable rule. Do not worry, that was made up ages ago by someone. It's definitely not true. Just do 3 lines and just make sure that last line has a real twist. There we are.
Beautiful. I'm enjoying the animal in us knows the power of chocolate. My saliva glands went bedoying. I'm in a field where I need other people. Zoom square prisons. It's beautiful to create community, a gem to use. The art of gathering, non-stop. Zoom can't feel my legs, moments of connection. Work is over. Let's build something different. I'm literally fiddling. 400 people in Twitter. It was a tiny business, actually. A boy falling out of the sky. The joy of work. A lower budget boinga. I've embroidered a vulva. Yes.
These are all your words, by the way. That's amazing poetry. Natural plain poetry. I love it.
Beautiful. Thank you, Philip. Simon, you've defaced your wall inspired by Bruce and our chatter. What have you got?
I don't know if people are going to be able to see. Well, I drew a vagina, a vulva, just in case. I couldn't think of a caption. Probably best not to. Questions are better than answers. No bull. Keep fiddling. Get in sync. Synchronicity builds community, and then resilience. What have we got here? Oh yeah. Are we Icarus? If you want a new world of work, you need to break a few eggs. Cake is the joy of work. Madagascan Chocky and Earl Grey, there's a lemur's tail. Is work a cult? Bringing love back into prisons. And then there's a poo emoji for Scott shitting his pants at the start.
That is beautiful. That is beautiful. Is anybody else? Monody, the embroidered vulva has had a lot of airtime. Ruby will be hopefully.
I think it should just shine a little bit. Oh, I'm holding it up the wrong way.
Sequins.
Yeah, and it says, "Dear Mrs. Vag," because Maya, when my younger daughter, when she was about 5, had that exercise where you write a letter to somebody, and hers began. Everyone else was "Dear Sally," and hers began "Dear Mrs. Vag." I had to really try not to laugh at Parents' Evening, but now that is our special name for our Lady Gardens. So yeah, the thing that has come out of all of this for me, and maybe some of you, is that we've kind of been given a bit of a gift of spending time with our grown-up children who were at university or left home, and they all came home to roost, and we've got to know each other in different ways as grown-ups in a time of trouble. And it's been really, I mean, it's been scritchy as well. I'm not rose tinted about it, but it's been really lovely. So that's something really positive I'll take out of this time. Yeah.
That's beautiful. Now, we can't leave without a song, right? So again, if we have a band, and by the way, the plan here is to take this live, so that in the autumn we'll do this. We're going to be doing this monthly, and my hope and dream is that we'll be doing this as a hybrid event, and we can gather together again in a live place. And even if we're sort of decorously distant, we'll be able to smell the chocolate and hear the laughter and share the laughter and have some music. So hopefully Improper will be doing music. But in lieu of that, I think we need to, in a Shakespearean way, we need to end with the song. And so I'm going to. It's a philosophical song actually. It's very much in the on the Icarus, the inability to fly thing, and it's sort of got Buddhistic overtones, and I think you'll agree it somehow brings everything we've been talking about together. Now, I gave you some song sheets earlier on. YouTubers, I'm sorry, you're going to have to just watch this from a distance or join in. But it's from, I think, an ancient Mandarin inscription, and it goes, "There ain't nobody here but us chickens." At which point you say, "Us chickens." There ain't nobody here at all. So calm yourself. And you go, calm. Stop your fuss.
Fuss.
There ain't nobody here but us. We chickens trying to sleep and you butt in. and hobble, 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 it's a sin. I think it's really appropriate, don't you think? So I'm now going to move us over to the performance area, and we're going to do something never yet tried. Well, it's been tried on Zoom, but it's rather difficult with the latency in the system, but we'll see what we can do. So I'm just going to go over here. One of the lovely things about lockdown is that my piano's come upstairs. I mean, it didn't come up by itself, but it had to in order to give Jo room to do her ceramics. So now we have a piano. So I'm going to, through the wonders of turning the laptop, we're going to go to another space, the performance space, where I am going to do my best. Where are we? I'm going to do this. And remember, the rule of green room is it's not supposed to work. Okay, it's about joy and attempting it, not getting it right. Okay, so here we go. We'll try. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is, as I say, it's deeply felt classical piece. This. One night Farmer Brown was taking the air, locked up the barnyard with the greatest of care. Down in the hen house, something stirred. When he shouted, "Who's there?" Okay, something I forgot to mention. When he shouted, you've got to go, there? "Who's there?" This is what he heard, okay? We're going to go back. One night Farmer Brown was taking the air, locked up the farmer with the greatest of care. Down in the hen house, something stirred. When he shouted, "Who's there?"
Who's there?
This is what he heard. There ain't nobody here but us chickens.
Us chickens.
There ain't nobody here at all.
Nobody here.
So calm yourself.
Calm.
There ain't nobody here but us. We chickens trying to sleep, and you butt in and hobba, 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 hobba. It's a sin. Tomorrow is a busy day. We got things to do. We got eggs to lay. We got ground to dig and worms to scratch. It takes a lot of setting to get chicks to hatch. There ain't nobody here but us chickens.
Us chickens.
There ain't nobody here at all. So calm yourself.
Calm.
Us.
Fuss.
There ain't nobody here but us. Kind of point that gun the other way and hoppa, 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 right off and hit it.
Yay!
Oh man! As we say in the green room, that's not going to get any better. Now, if we had a band, actually, Fiona, could you be our hi-hat and just keep going? Because then what I would be doing as the credits roll, I'd be saying, I just want to thank you guys. I want to thank my wonderful guest. I want to thank Shanti. Whoa! I want to thank Philip Cowell, Scott Morrison, Simon Heath, Molly Stevenson, Fiona Finsbury, Jonathan Pearl, Esperine Ananas Ametista. Last but not least, Bruce Daisley. And in the background, Mark. Thank you very much, Mark, for doing that. Joe, who's downstairs. Everyone on YouTube. Books will be coming to you if you need it. No, start again. Those who want a book, leave us your address so we know how to get that to you. Sign up for start again. Hang on. Sign up for the green room. Sign up on my website, and that way you'll know when we're doing stuff in September. And you'll also be able to see Street Wisdom's email, and that way you can, if you want, you can give a donation to Street Wisdom. But there's only one thing we need to say now to finish it off, and that is, it's easy pickings. There ain't nobody here but us chickens. Thank you.
Bye.
See you soon.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. See you soon.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.
There ain't nobody here but chickens. There ain't nobody here.